Thank you for joining us for PrepXtra Live, the post-game show. I'm Aram Talegian, joined on my right. This is not Fred J. Robledo. This is Jared Pine, one of our crack staff here, and Steve Ramirez, and behind the camera, at least for now, Freddie, as always.
Here.
Yeah, he's here. He's behind the camera right now. Big night of high school football. A lot of things that are going to determine league champions, playoff spots, yet again, came to fruition tonight. And, boy, guys, I don't know where else to start other than the game that I was at. But since we have, and that was San Marino against Monrovia, but since we have Jared here for only a limited time, we'll jump right into the game that he was at tonight, which is Charter Oak's big win tonight over Diamond Ranch. I don't really, I feel bad saying this, but that's a wrap in the Hacienda League. 34-7, Charter Oak beats Diamond Ranch. Jared, I was following your tweets all night. It looks just as dominant as the score sounds, it sounded just as dominant as the score looks.
Yeah, it was pretty dominant, and that'll put Charter Oak now into first place for the Hacienda since Los Altos lost in overtime to Chino. It was a question of which Diamond Ranch was going to show up. The one that got shut out by South Hills, or the one that scored 50 on West Covina, and I think the score answers that pretty clearly. The biggest problem for Diamond Ranch was third down conversion. Started the night 0 for 7 on third down. Didn't get their first third down conversion until 2 minutes left in the third quarter. Ended up scoring on that drive. That was the only drive they scored on. Great night for Cam Brown. 18 for 25 passing for 213 yards and 2 touchdowns. So a big night for him.
A number producer.
Yeah, a great night for him. And I thought Diamond Ranch did a good job getting pressure on him with their defensive line. They sacked him 6 times. But when he was able to get the throws off, a lot of success. Really did a great job picking apart the secondary of the Panthers. I thought that was the difference there, was his passing game.
That was one of those games I called, Aram. I kind of felt that was going to be a blowout. I just think Charter Oak's just looking too good for that league. And I thought, Diamond Ranch, despite the win over West Covina, the fluky way it happened last week, I just thought this was setting up. They were going to keep up in a track meet with the Chargers.
Yeah, I also said, I think in our 2-minute drill, or maybe at the end of last week's show, to watch out, because Charter Oak is really, really hitting its stride. And what comes of it may be something really special, like a CIF championship. This team right now is just getting scary good. Jared, you saw it tonight. Talk about their defense. Because, we know they have offense. Zion Eccles, one of the better running backs in the area. Cam Brown, like you said, very good quarterback. They got guys on the outside like Castile and Nash. But it's the defense, that last week put the clamps on Chino and this week puts the clamps on Diamond Ranch. What did you think of their D? They're undersized, I know that, but they move around.
No, absolutely. They kept them from breaking any big plays, kept Panthers from doing anything there. And you said in the 2-minute drill, if it's a battle of which team's more athletic, Charter Oak's going to win. And I think that's really what you saw. The skill position players for Charter Oak were just better than what Diamond Ranch has, and more depth and more options to go to. And I think that eventually made the difference in the game.
Right. Freddie, do you agree with me here? That's a wrap for the Hacienda League? This is, I don't know who else can.
I think now you're just playing for playoff spots. I think, Charter Oak is going to run the table. But, they still have West Covina, which, West Covina has that one loss. They beat Walnut tonight. That's still the team. And it's sort of a rivalry game in a ways that goes back, because these teams had traded championships a few years back. They both have a lot of pride. They both have, when you look at pedigree, look at their coaching staffs, Majori, Farrar, they both won multiple titles. And I think that's a game that the West Covina kids really, really get up for. And if there's, any game of contrasting styles, West Covina will give that to Charter Oak. They'll try to bruise it. They'll try to slow the game down. But I do think that this Charter Oak team, Aram, is too good for everybody else. But that's the one game they still have to get by.
And here's the reason why, which is what I said last week. They're the only team in the league that can pass. The rest of these teams cannot pass with nearly the efficiency that Charter Oak can. Plus, Charter Oak has the running game with Eccles. You have that kind of balance, you're set. And you could almost make that statement about Charter Oak and the division. There's really only 3 or 4 teams out there in that division, in the Central Division, that can actually pass.
You saw one of them tonight.
I saw one of them tonight, and we'll let Jared go here. Jared, thank you. Well, wait. Let me ask you this, Jared. What teams in the Central Division have you seen? I mean, you've seen Bonita, right? Mm-hmm. That's the alma mater, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we won't put you on the spot there, but you've seen Glendora. You've seen Charter Oak now. Anybody else? I don't think.
Yeah. Well, I saw Glendora last week. I saw Glendora beat up on South Hills, and from last week to this week, I'd say Charter Oak looked a little bit better to me.
Right.
Cam Brown, a better pure passer, I'd say, than Matt Fink. Matt Fink, of course, can hurt you with his feet. So interesting contrast there between the two quarterbacks. But yeah, I think Charter Oak.
That could be a great rematch if they wind up meeting again. I don't think it's going to be as easy the second time around.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. But Charter Oak, most impressive that you've seen in the Central
so far. Yeah.
Yeah. There you have it, Jared Pine, ladies and gentlemen. Be sure and read his game story. He was at Charter Oak's 34-7 win over Diamond Ranch. Have a good weekend, Jared.
And here we go.
Here's Freddie J. Robledo. Okay, we'll get into the big one of the night. That took place tonight at San Marino High School. San Marino 49, Monrovia 14. San Marino quarterback Carson Glazer, Freddie, he wanted me to tell you, good job. He said, tell, and I was like,
Robledo or Roledo
myself?
or?
He's like, no.
Did he get my name right?
Robledo, yeah. He said, tell him nice call. And I was like, wait, kid, are you being like sarcastic? He's like, no, he called it, man.
I called a blowout. I tried to tell you earlier in the week. And I was going on the blogs all this week, and people were taking me to task, like I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, the whole San Marino hasn't played anybody, yada, yada, yada. I mean, they went on and on about how their size is as they're going to physically impose themselves. We had that feature earlier in the week of the three the three
Glazer,
San Marino
Shopey,
kids,
and
they're making fun of it. Like these are three. Like look at these three little boys on the cover. Like they're going to do anything to us. Well, look what happened today. I mean that team, and like Steve and I talked about, on the drills earlier in the week. Some of the teams they had smacked around already. When you thought of Cal, they did it into Arroyo, and you had to wait and see what they did against Monrovia. Smacking them the way they did Airman, they put this game away early. I was looking at your tweets, and I've got to get out and see San Marino. Maybe next week is a week. That's going to be another undefeated game against. Who knows? Maybe South Pasadena is going to give them a better game than Monrovia. Maybe Monrovia finishes third in the Rio Hondo League this year. I don't know. But that might be a game. If the schedules work out, I can get to next week because that's going to be 7-0 against 7-0. If I'm right.
Yes. South Pasadena. They played Blair tonight. They won 40. They were up 48.
Yeah. Well, South Pasadena. I think they finished right with San Marino, and then is it Monrovia in the finale?
That makes, and maybe Temple City in there. Right. They're going to have 3 more games. But
this,
anyways,
this is great because San Marino a contender. We haven't. How long has it been since we've said something like that?
Not that long.
Legitimate contender. Come on.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so we got to put this in context. Okay, so this is San Marino's first win. This kind of made me feel old over Monrovia since 2003 when San Marino beat them 12-0 . And guess who covered that game?
Aaron Telegian.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were the Pasadena.
I bet you weren't rubbing in the Just for Men back then, were you?
Well, I'll never do that.
I was still not rubbing it in, if you can't tell. Yeah, the silver fox over here. Anyways,
the magic shampoo wasn't the magic back then.
No,
you didn't need it.
I needed it a little back then, but certainly not that emergency that it is now. No, Freddie, I don't know if you were a Star News guy back then or if it was Kevin Chavez. We were speculating about that tonight.
It was Kevin.
Yeah.
I covered that game, and it was a Monrovia or San Marino winner makes the playoffs type game. And it was the last game of the season, and Maloney dialed up just a beautiful defensive game plan. San Marino won 12-0. But that was 2003. They hadn't beaten Monrovia since then. Monrovia's league championship streak, that's at 8 right now. Won or shared the last 8. You still can't say, well, it's over. It's not over yet because No, it's not. Technically,
unless San Marino, you got the South Pass game, right?
Yeah. Well, technically, there's a chance, if San Marino slips and Monrovia wins out, they tie. So, but that's not looking good. San Marino's on the inside track right now, and so is South Pass. And then, as far as a league unbeaten streak, that's gone. 38 games, that's out the window right now.
I
got to tell you, this San Marino program, I mean, their fans, they really wanted this win, and they could sense it.
I was telling you earlier in the week. I mean, this was just building.
Yeah, it was building.
It had to be.
It was building.
I'm not there, but it just had to be. You had that feeling.
It was building like the last few years. They had given them, Stevie, some games that you had covered. They had given them some good games with different classes of player. Last year, they lost 48-42. This group came close, and you could just feel that they were. This was just the night to kind of let it all out, and they did that right away. They jumped right on top of them. JP Shofi, man, this guy is so electric. I got to meet his mom, Kim, tonight. That was great to meet as well. Very nice lady, football mom out there. JP Shofi, this guy, I mean, he's got a reputation as being one of the better, or if not one of the best receivers in the Valley, and that's with company like Tyler Vaughns and Trey Sidney and all that stuff. And how he hasn't been offered yet is kind of scary. First touchdown, he catches a 35-yard pass from Carson Glazier, and I'm watching the whole play develop. I see Carson. I'm in the end zone. I see Carson Glazier, and I see the ball, coming to a spot where nobody is, and at the very last second, in comes Shofi, catches the ball, falls into the end zone, touchdown.
Wow.
These guys are so pinpoint with this offense. That's what sets them apart. And then Shofi scored on a touchdown run in the first quarter. Then he had a dazzling punt return for a touchdown. 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. They have Monrovia basically put away. And
we're gonna have this on video too. Tom Kitts.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see
was out there
the
as
highlights because we don't get to see a lot of highlights. The games that they had earlier in the year, they were such blowouts.
Right.
They weren't games that we were really able to feature.
Right.
I mean, they scheduled such a soft non-league schedule that they were winning every game by 50 points.
And still, though, Fred, despite all of us picking them, we all picked them this week. Some of us, by a huge margin. Despite that, they still had a chip on their shoulder about people saying that they haven't played anyone.
Well, they hadn't.
And they hadn't. Right, you're right. But tonight they proved that it really doesn't matter. And I'll give you something to think about. Monrovia gave St. Francis a much better game than San Marino did, than they did San Marino. If you can compare and contrast those two scores. San Marino beat this team like to a pulp, had them out of there in the first round, that type of thing. Whereas I think with St. Francis, that St. Francis Monrovia game was competitive at halftime into the second half.
So let me ask you, because you've seen them both.
Yeah.
Charter Oak or San Marino?
I've seen Charter Oak. I've seen Glendora. I've seen San Marino. Okay. I've seen Bonita. I've seen.
Well, there you have it.
I haven't seen anybody from the Mount Valley League. No.
And you haven't seen. No, there's another team.
Kaiser, maybe? I don't know.
No, there's another team. It escapes me right now. That is the other serious contender.
I don't know who that could be.
You could do a quick little CIF ranking search. I know there's one other team out there.
But I get the question that you're asking.
So between those two, if those two played next week, who are you picking?
I don't know. And for the fact, and just for me to say I don't know is really saying something about San Marino. I would probably lean with Charter Oak because they have the speed across the board to give San Marino fits. They have balance. Charter Oak can run and pass. Like we said earlier in the show, there's not a lot of teams in this division that can do both well. But San Marino can do both well. And I'll tell you the difference with San Marino from last year is their defense is they're much better on defense. They're still not overly talented on defense per se, but the scheme feels different. The linebackers, Diaz and Wiki, just outstanding games tonight by these guys. They're much better on defense than they were last year. I'll tell you something. If Charter Oak plays San Marino, if Glendora plays San Marino, those are going to be good games.
And Steve, what you don't know now, like Aaron, he was saying that I think they have a better running game. We don't know about San Marino because they've blown everyone out so easy. Their defense has been so good. There's just a ceiling that we don't know. We don't know how good they are because they've done it so easy.
Yeah,
that's scary.
Yeah, they haven't been challenged at all. And so, like you said, you just don't know. But, you can look at the talent level that they have and what they can do offensively. And, like I said, their defense has really improved this year.
Yeah, because Monrovia's played a good schedule. Monrovia's been in it with some really good teams. And Monrovia isn't a bad team. I know. I thought they were going to get blown out.
If you look at the last 8 or 9 Monrovia teams, where does this one rank? 7, 8, or 9? That's the
thing.
That's
the thing. It's at the bottom of that ranking. That list
exactly. So that's kind of the thing to keep in mind, and that's as I'm driving, to the office from that game. I'm trying to like stop myself from, tonight I'm going to go on the show and say San Marino's winning the Central and all that stuff. And then that was what was stopping me was the fact that this is not. If you look at the last 8 or 9 Monrovia teams, this might be the worst one of them all.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry to say that because they do have some talent, and they're a talented team, and we've seen them give good games, if not beat decent teams this year. So San Marino can certainly hang its hat on that.
And I know,
but I can tell you, I've seen Glendora and Charter Oak, and San Marino can definitely run with those guys.
Yeah, Monrovia just doesn't have the personnel they had maybe 3-4 years ago, where they could pass the ball and have explosive pace.
Well, I don't think there's a D1 kid on the team.
No,
and that's kind of strange.
But they don't have. From what I saw that first game, they didn't have that hammer running back who can just dominate a game, and also defensively.
You remember Monrovia?
Yeah, they didn't have guys like that team they had a few years ago with Frazier and McCarthy.
Right. And there's not a D1 guy on the team.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing. That's kind of the difference. But
this. I don't know the last time San Marino won a championship. I know they've had
1988.
Is it 88? I know they've had great teams, but I would guess statistically.
The ball boy?
Yeah.
I would guess statistically, Aaron, up to this point, this has got to be the greatest year they've ever had in their history. This first 7 games. Statistically, I know it's not the toughest schedule they've played.
Statistically,
I think they're on a record-breaking pace.
Yeah, they were 13-0-1 or 12-0-1. They had a tie with Temple City. It was ridiculous. I think they were up 28-0 on Temple City, and it finished 28-all. Temple City scored 4 touchdowns in the second half. San Marino didn't score. I believe that was what it was in 1988. Okay. I remember as a kid that San Marino went for like a 40-yard field goal at the buzzer. I think Robbie Bishop was the kicker. And I remember standing under the goalpost, because I thought he was going to hit it and I was going to catch the ball and all this stuff, but it wasn't even close. But anyways,
1988, huh?
Yeah, and that's
you were at that football game.
Yeah, I was at that.
You're probably missing Kurt Gibson's home run in the World Series that night, huh?
I don't think it's possible. It was league play. They beat Santa Maria in the championship game in a game at San Marino High School.
Yeah, that's how long it's been, and you had to remind us on the night the Dodgers got eliminated that it's been since 1988.
And I should tell you that in 1993 they made the finals, and they lost to Mike Machete and La Mirada. That was like a 35-7 game. Machete was just literally a one-man show. And it was a good San Marino team, not a great San Marino team, but they had won some close games in the playoffs. Oh my God, man! If you saw Mike Machete play in high school,
I saw him at Mount Sac, and that was pretty good too.
I saw him in Colorado, and I saw him at Mount Sac too. But man, this guy in high school, he's a quarterback, and when he decided to run, you just weren't going to tackle him.
Machete was
awesome, man.
He was one of my favorite all-time players. He was just such a winner. He was a winner.
Well, La Mirada had a series there of, I'd say, 3 to 5 years where they were a top team. Yeah. In their division and in CIF,
we could probably
when Coach Melee was the coach.
We could probably talk about San Marino all night, but there are some other games and some rather surprisingly, shockingly easy results. The game I was at tonight.
Yes, Aaron. Bishop Amat 49, Alamany 24.
And that game was 49. That game was 49-3. They basically scored 3 throwaway touchdowns when the second string was in. Fourth quarter, I think they scored all 3 of those in the fourth quarter of a running clock. It was total dominance for Bishop Amat. And look, this is an Alamany team that is ranked 8th in the Pac-5 that entered with a 5-1. Record, they are. Was it 5-1 or 6-1? I'm not sure. I think it was 5. It was 5-1. It
was fraudulent.
Yeah, it was 5-1 record, and Amat just beat them. I mean, that was as easy as any of the easy games I've seen this year. When you look at Amat right now, they're 6 wins, and they've all come at home. Those 6 wins have been by an average of about almost 40 points a game. And then there are 2 losses on the road, just the 2 by a combined 6 points to Mater Dei and Sarah.
Now, the knock on them, though, is the only 2, big games they've had all year. They've lost them both. But They lost both games, and I'm telling you, haven't seen both games, and you guys have seen both games. Well, at least I don't know if you saw.
I saw the
tape
game
of the Sarah game.
I've seen almost.
These are games that could have gone either way.
Yeah,
that's something that
they could very
can take
easily be undefeated.
They could take that in the playoffs. However, that was against Mater Dei in week 0, and Mater Dei played St. John Bosco tonight, and I know it was 28-0
at one point. How bad did it finish?
I don't know, but we've talked about this on the show quite a bit. Yeah. This gap between Centennial and Bosco, and then the rest of the Pac-5, super contenders. Yeah. And we thought 2 weeks ago that Bishop Amat had closed into that gap of being on the same level of Bosco and Centennial. And then to see what Centennial did tonight to Mater Dei, we don't have the final, but like Fred said. See what Bosco did to Mater Dei tonight. Now you start feeling like that gap has been pushed back out, and now Amat sits with these teams with Long Beach Poly, Sarah, Amat, and now Mater Dei. But
not a horrible group to be among.
No. But probably one step below. 1 or 2 steps below these juggernaut Centennial and Bosco teams.
Well, when I look at, you're right, Bosco and Centennial, they are a step above all of these others. But when I look at those next tier teams now, Mater Dei, Long Beach Poly, Sarah, Bishop Amat,
right?
I really do think what Bishop Amat has over those teams. I don't even want to say over. I'm going to say what Bishop Amat, they're capable of being in a game with those teams when everything's clicking, everything's going right. I think they can play with one of those teams. The way they've blown out some of these teams, when everything's going right, when things are clicking, when they're not turning the ball over, when they're, Damian Garcia was great tonight. He threw for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns, made it look easy, sweet, had another 3-touchdown night. Mm. Their defense played well. But what I think Amat, when they're hitting on all cylinders and they're playing like the way they did tonight, I think they can be in games like that. Just like last year, the game with Centennial. I remember going into that game thinking, reading about Centennial, this is a game, as good as Amat's been in these playoffs, this is a team that athletically might just run them off the field. And they had just an everything went right night to be in that game and have a chance at the end. And I think that's what they're going to have if they get to a Centennial, if they get to a St. John Bosco. Because you're right, if they play those teams 10 times, they probably lose 8 or 9 out of 10. But they can be in it for that one moment, that one chance, if they get there.
Yeah. We're lumping Centennial with Bosco. Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe Centennial should be in
some people think Centennial is the best team in the country.
But maybe Centennial should be in that. I mean, I don't know what they've done really yet this year. But, I mean, maybe they should be more in that Amat, Mater Dei, Long Beach Poly.
I don't think so. I think not. I think Centennial and Sarah.
Well, okay. So you think they'd belong with Bosco clearly above everyone else in SoCal? Yeah. All right. I mean, that's it's hard to argue. I haven't seen them.
But it was a must. This is when Amat had to have. You look at them now. They're 6-2, 3 games to go. 2 on the road. They get Chaminade next week. If they beat Chaminade on the road, that virtually almost guarantees a playoff spot. I don't think there's a way they don't get in if they win that. And then basically you have a bye week in Loyola at the end. So they're going to have a chance to really get rested. They may have a playoff spot clinched going into that final week with 2 weeks to go. So they're looking now like they're in pretty good shape. But I think you got to win those last 2 because now it comes down to playoff seeding and trying to get that first round home game. And those things are extremely important when you're in the Pac-5. Maybe not as much in the Central or some of these other divisions, but when you get in the Pac-5, that first round home game, that
how about just avoiding a Trinity League team?
Yes, you want, they're probably not going to get seeded unless something dramatic happens to Sarah along the way.
You want to play the second place team from the Big 8, like Norco or something. Yeah. I don't know who it is.
You want to play the second place team from the Moore League or the third place or the fourth place.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
those are the dream scenarios. You get a Moore League second place team.
And fortunately,
Amat got that last year. Didn't they get a Moore League?
They got Lakewood.
Lakewood, yeah.
Fortunately, all that's going to be changing. Hopefully next year when the new playoff system's in place.
Terrible system.
And you're going to have just absolute. No, it's a great system.
I hate it. You're
going to have great matchups right off the bat. There won't be the second place Moore League team in there. You'll be playing Mission Viejo instead. I mean, that's more like it. And we'll have great games from the word go. But yeah, Bishop Amat bounces back. As far as a lot of people are concerned, though, Freddie, no one's going to get jazzed about this team until it gets back into a step-up game this year and wins it.
Well, that's not going to happen now until they get in the playoffs.
Right? Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's what we're all gunning for.
The second round, the second round game would probably be a step-up game, or at least someone at an equal level with them.
Right. Okay. Moving on. Big game tonight in the Pacific League. Arcadia was, trying to maintain first place. Their first place tie, I believe, with Burroughs. They came up just a little bit short. I think this score was a little wider, the margin at least, at times. But Arcadia loses 39-34. But very nice final score against a Burroughs team. It just shows how well that Arcadia team is playing right now. Muir loses to Crescenta Valley 40-27.
Yeah, boy, Muir might not make the playoffs.
Muir's probably on the outside looking in right now, Freddie. That's kind of scary. And then Pasadena easily over Glendale. And then we'll jump back to the Central Division. Glendora, another one of the big games tonight. They beat Bonita. Now Bonita's 0-2 in the Palomares League. 31-19 Glendora over Bonita.
South Hill's got to win over Diamond Bar tonight.
Yeah, South Hills beats Diamond Bar 17-10. Glendora, I was going to say, is well on its way to winning the Palomares League. Well on its way to what? Looking like the
big shocker is Ayala beating undefeated Claremont tonight, and Ayala's 2-0. Ayala had that horrible, I think, preseason record. I'd have to look at all of the games and the teams
and they play. They play on Thursday night. Ayala and Glendora
this Thursday night.
College, yeah.
Well, there you go. That may be the game that ultimately decides the league title now.
Right. That takes on extra importance now. Go figure. And that's what can happen in league. You get into league play and you start winning, and anything can happen.
Is Bonita going to make the playoffs now?
Well, that's kind of the question. They're 0-2. They better run the table the rest of the way.
Because Ayala's looking tough now. I mean, that's going to be a tough out.
You look at Bonita though, and they've played in theory. I know Ayala won tonight. They probably played the two toughest teams they're going to play in league though, Glendora and Claremont. So you got to think Bonita's got a good chance to win out, maybe get third, if not fourth. Okay, jumping over to a couple other scores that really caught my eye. One of them, this is a big rivalry game.
South El Monte.
South El Monte beat El Monte tonight, 25-22.
On Twitter, I see all the "Don't Doubt the South" tweets all over the place.
Don't doubt. That was great stuff, man.
Don't doubt the South.
That's a great Lee Aguirre quote
that's still buzzing on social media.
Yeah, that was from that was like 2005. No, that's the what do they call that game? The oh man, they have a name for it that makes no sense.
Something trophy.
Yeah, or the something cup. Oh gosh,
something cup. It's something.
It's escaping.
I hate that we don't know it off the top of our head.
But South El Monte was 0-6 coming into tonight, and they beat their rival El Monte, so season fulfilled.
God, you had El Monte at the beginning of the year, way up here, and now they're losing to 0-6 teams.
Yeah, they're 4-4 after tonight. By previous El Monte standards, that's still pretty good. But that's going to throw a wrinkle into maybe a playoff spot for the third place team in the Mission Valley, which may not even get that because you only get two guaranteed playoff spots now in the Mid Valley Division every league. So there may not be a third Mission Valley League team after Arroyo and Rosemead.
What's that other game that shocked you, Aaron?
Well, I tell you what, it was going to shock me if Damien beat Upland,
and they were
for a while they were.
Yeah, for a while they were.
It didn't happen.
Damien's quietly played pretty well, even in some of these losses. They played in the baseline. I think they've hung with some of these pretty good teams. They just haven't been able to do it.
And we even put out the Damien helmet tonight because I thought until Stevie broke my heart that they actually beat Upland, but no.
What do you think of the Los Altos overtime loss to Chino tonight?
Very bad loss.
Was it 26-23?
23-20 or was it? It was 23-20 Chino.
23-20, yeah.
Los Altos in trouble now playoffs wise. That's what I think. And Chino, looking better for the playoffs.
Los Altos, a team that played for the championship last year, and they
has
had
Tyler and Evans
start.
Still. And they thought they
who
were.
Who do they have to beat now to finish
They
up?
still haven't played Charter Oak.
That's a loss.
Yeah, I can pull that up for you right now. It is really not looking good for them. Yeah, here we go. Los Altos. They played Charter Oak, West Covina, and Diamond Ranch to finish. That is Murderer's Row.
And they've lost 2 already.
Yeah. No, they've lost 1. They opened the league with a win over.
That's right. So they had the 2 easiest games right off the bat. These are the 2 absolute must games.
I don't know. It wasn't easy tonight. I think was the other upset you thought I was referring to Tom Kiss's Workman Lobos over Duarte 28-22. I don't know.
Workman, that's an upset.
Yeah,
it's definitely an upset.
Now we should get to the game that Stevie was at tonight. Santa Fe. I mean, this would have been like 4th or 5th on my list of teams to surprise in the Del Rio League. Santa Fe stays alive for that shot at Lucerne in a league title by beating Cal High tonight, 35-34. This was in overtime?
Yeah. It was
wow, and you said it was like a 2-point conversion?
Santa Fe got the ball first and scored, and Cal came right back and scored, and they decided to go for 2.
The gusto.
Yeah.
That's a Steve Haggerty call.
They called 2 timeouts. They called a timeout.
That's not good.
Then they called another timeout, and so I thought they were going to rush the field goal team on, but no. But they came out in shotgun, and they tried a little flat pass that was incomplete. And,
did you get video of that, Stevie? We're going to see that later? All right.
We'll see that later. But the thing about these 2 teams,
be a SoCal Prep Legends
they have almost no passing game at all. I mean, they did hit some big pass plays.
And they still put up 30-something points.
But it was mostly
wow.
The running game, Edward Cisneros of Santa Fe rushed I had him for 306 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's an elusive guy, but even though this is a big win for them, if you can just run the ball, that's almost like falling into Lucerna's trap. I mean, because their defense is all over you if you don't give them that other option of passing the ball. So
forget it. But at least technically they're still alive for the league title.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in a first place tie, Santa Fe, with Lucerna, and good for Santa Fe. That's a very proud program.
Yeah, it's a big win. You know, they had a down year last year,
right?
So it's really, it was very impressive and exciting for them to get a win like this and continue on.
Sticking in the Whittier area, La Habra, our powerhouse team that I keep trying to convince Freddie of. 48-14 over Buena Park. Buena Park, a lot of people thought, after Sonora, could be the team that challenges La Habra. Still not happening. Freeway League over. That's it. La Habra is going into the playoffs as no worse than the number 1 or co-number 1 seed with San Clemente, and they're on the.
There'll be 1 or 2 depending on.
I'm sorry. In the rankings, they're 1 and 1A right now. So one of them will have to be number. It'll probably be La Habra.
It doesn't really matter.
One's
on one side of the bracket. The other's on the other.
San Clemente won the title last year, so they deserve to be the 1 if they're both tied there going in. And I don't know what else there is. St. Paul beat LaSalle tonight, 21-9. St. Paul stays alive,
it keeps them alive, especially with the way St. Francis has lost their last 2 games. That game last night and it was a Hail Mary game.
Right.
But just them that Harvard Westlake was in the game with St. Francis. Maybe St. Francis is not this.
They're going to have to battle to make the playoffs.
This elite team in the division that we thought they
Don't they have Cathedral next week?
Yes, Cathedral next week, and they're 0-2 in league right now.
Wow, this could knock them out of league next week.
I do want to say that it was brought to my attention they didn't have star running back Eric Nazarian last night. Armenian Thunder didn't play, and then they didn't have Jasher Foster, their top deep threat receiver.
That's a big
so they're playing without their stud running back and their stud receiver. And they lost the game to Harvard Westlake on a Hail Mary.
Are the guys injured or what?
Yeah, they were injured. So look, they're still 0-2 in league, and they're up against it now because they're going to have to maybe pull something off against Cathedral. I still think that, like last year, the Angeles League will get their 4th place team will get an at-large like Salesian did last year, and then they knocked off La Mirada in the first round. I think Salesian made it to the semis last year. So I think that league's strong enough that Glenn Martinez and those. You obviously the at-large qualification has to, the formula has to be met, obviously, but at the end of the day, I still think it's going to be
a first
the Angeles League 4th place.
St. Francis and say La Mirada or even
I mean that's the scary thing. any of those league champions or boroughs, any of those league or the San Gabriel Valley League champion, whoever that might be. Any of those teams that win a league, they're just praying to God they don't play that at-large team from the Angeles League because it's going to be one of your toughest games of the year, no matter who it is. Yeah. And La Mirada found that out last year.
Last Thursday night game to talk about. How about Northview beating San Dimas 35-28, holding them off? Yeah. That was 35-14 in the fourth quarter. San Dimas tried to come back. They got within a touchdown, the onside kick. They didn't get it. Northview holds on.
I've seen that happen to Northview in the past.
They kind of take their foot off the gas?
Where they did that to Covina, where they were up 28-0 at half, and everyone's all happy, high-fiving each other. And then here comes Covina.
Yeah, it looked like that game started. It looked like it started to turn pretty quick, but then they held them off.
Yeah.
Covina is interesting in that league. If Covina could beat San Dimas, you can go into Week 10 with Northview and Covina, both undefeated in the Valley Vista, playing for a title. That would be fun because those two are rivals as it is.
And you really
you get them in Week 10, and you get them with undefeated records.
Yes.
I'd like to see something like that happen, but I'm sure San Dimas is going to have something to say about it.
All right.
That's a wrap.
No, it's not. Biggest surprise, biggest disappointments.
Right.
You guys want to?
Yeah, my biggest surprise. It's don't doubt the South. 25-22. 0-6, beating El Monte, a team that I think a lot of us thought, especially Aram, would be a Mission Valley League title contender. For sure, you'd think El Monte's going to be in the playoffs. This is a game that actually might knock them out of the playoffs. When you think Rosemead's going to get in, Arroyo's going to get in, and if this game ends up being a tiebreaker, depending on how South El Monte does with the others, this could knock El Monte out of the playoffs.
All right, so that was your biggest surprise?
That was my biggest surprise.
Okay, who's your biggest disappointment?
Biggest disappointment is Los Altos losing that game to Chino in overtime, and a game I really think they had to win in that league. You just talked about the schedule they have remaining. The back end of that schedule are where all the tough games are, and I didn't think Chino. You saw last week what Charter Oak did to them. They had played a pretty weak schedule. They had barely beaten Roland. It was a team at home. That I think, or was it on the road?
It was at Chino.
It was at Chino. It's a game that Los Altos has to win.
Yeah.
And now their backs are really up against it because they've got to beat one of those three teams that you can really argue they'll be favored to lose. They'll be underdogs in all three of these games. They're going to have to win one of those to probably have a shot at the playoffs.
Stevie, biggest surprise?
My biggest surprise is probably what I saw from Santa Fe tonight. Based on their schedule, it was hard to get a good read on them. And I could see tonight that they're a pretty good football team. I'm not sure I don't think they can beat Lucerna, but this is a pretty good football team. And if they're like the second place team, I can see them going a couple rounds in the playoffs.
Yeah. Biggest disappointment?
I'd probably say Los Altos too. Just based on what I saw from Chino and the wins that Los Altos had earlier in the year.
Boy, LA.
I thought they would be a better.
LA.
I just can't fathom that they would lose to Chino. But
it's all gone down ever since they tried that little trick play against Glendora. Their mojo just went.
That was actually the opening kickoff, and I think that game was tied at half.
Whatever. So I think the heat they've taken since then, it's just.
No, I wouldn't go that far, Fred.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. My biggest disappointment is Fred's biggest surprise, and so my biggest disappointment would be El Monte losing to South El Monte. El Monte losing, to teams that are, like the Montebellos of the world, okay, that's forgivable. But to be your rival's first win of the season, to have the offensive talent that
Joe
they
Sanchez
have.
doing tonight?
Yeah, he's that's our guy, and he's obviously very bummed. So El Monte would be my biggest disappointment. My biggest surprise was the San Marino defense tonight. We all knew they had offense. We all knew they could put up a bunch of points. But this defense plays with a lot of energy. They have a mean streak to them, which I like to see out of a San Marino team because usually San Marino doesn't have a mean streak. And, they say when you grow up with a swimming pool, you don't have a mean streak. But yeah,
I grew up with a swimming pool. I have a mean streak. Yeah,
there's always a knock. there's always
I've never heard that before.
Oh yeah. It's
I've never heard that saying before. But.
Yeah. Well, I mean, having grown up in the area, there was always a knock that San Marino teams and teams. Yes. Well, let me finish.
Okay.
Yes, soft and do not have a mean streak. And teams. It also extends to teams from the foothills, Glendora, Bonita, those types of teams. That when push comes to shove, that they're going to back down. They do not have a mean streak that teams that play from below the 210 freeway have. It exists out in that area. Like when Charter Oak plays Glendora, they feel they're the batter team. And around the San Marino area, same thing. Teams from that area, Monrovia, whatever, feel like you hit these guys, they'll back down. There was none of that tonight from San Marino. They were the ones doing the hitting. They had the energy. They're a really, really nice defense.
We need to get a San Marino helmet up here, guys. San Marino, let's get a helmet on the show.
I prefer one of the old ones. They're playing with these now silvery. They have like new uniforms this year, not the old San Marino blue and white that looks like BYU.
Well, they got the chrome helmet, don't they?
Yeah, they have a chrome helmet. So
I think I'm gonna get myself a San Marino football sweatshirt.
I think really what you need to do is just go to a San Marino game and
remember the Titans.
And I want to say that I think the rest. Yeah, and I want to say that the rest of the Valley needs to do that as well, because guys like Carson Glazer, JP Shofi, these homegrown talents, Aiden Santino, Wiki, these guys, they don't come along very often for San Marino, and that team deserves to really pack the house every week. And don't just wait until they play Glendora or Charter Oak to go see them. Well, actually, I'm not going to sit here and tell you to go watch San Marino play La Cañada. Okay?
Well, there's one game left to really go watch before
South Pasadena next week.
South Pasadena next week.
The Crowley Cup.
At South Pass, which is near Dodger Stadium, way on the far end. It might as well. It's far. South Pasadena.
They have better parking than the other. Hope they have better
2 blocks from my house.
Hope they have better parking than the other high school near Dodger Stadium, which is Cathedral.
Parking sucks at South Pass.
You're South Pass guy?
So I get there early. It's technically Pasadena, but it's right on the border.
That's how Aram Talegian lives.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, so that's a wrap for tonight, everybody. Good college football slate tomorrow. As usual, the Big Ten, on the forefront with that Michigan State game.
I can't really talk about college football, baseball, anything.
USC plays Notre Dame, first game post-Sark era. Should be really interesting weekend. We got to hear what the Monrovia people have to say. I mean, please do not be shy. A lot of times when Monrovia gets humbled, they kind of avoid the blogs.
Greeny, I want to talk to you.
Yeah, Greeny and Mean Joe and Observant Cat and all these guys. Get on the blog.
Turbo Cat.
Yeah, get on the blogs. Do what you guys usually do after a loss. Blame the coaches. And let us know. You missed that, didn't you?
Yeah.
About blaming the coaches. I wasn't coaching tonight. I'll tell you that much. It was you just ran into a juggernaut. Tip of the cap.
Yeah.
That's it. San Marino's night. What else can you say?
Yeah.
You don't say that very often. For Freddie and Stevie, Freddie's going to take us out.
I agree, those guys. We're in Monrovia now. They can buy me lunch for calling this game the way I call it. To a T.
I don't think they'll buy you lunch.
They love you in San Marino, Fred.
Yeah, that'd be a nice lunch over there. All right, here we go.